Hi there, Capricorn. Welcome to your December 2025 love reading. And this is going to be for people who are single as well as those in relationships that aren't working. Let's see what kind of cards come through here. So that's actually the Hangman reversed. Okay. Well, if you are somebody who's been having a dry spell, I think that's going to change. And it'll change fast. But you may have to just wait a little while longer, perhaps until, sometime in December. The heart of the matter is the Four of Pentacles. You are Pentacles because this is Earth energy. You can see the woman clutching, hugging, embracing the Pentacles, which is all about the material energy like money and possessions, and she's holding on to him. Sometimes this can mean, like, for instance, in relationships, that the relationship is too materialistic. It's too based on that side of life, and it kind of degrades both people because they're operating as if that's the most important thing in life. And it can be quite diminishing to what life is really all about, which is about maybe helping each other to grow your emotional connection with a person. Not just like, oh, we can buy more things together. That's great. Wow. And if you are somebody who is single, it might be that you are actively pursuing a job or career, and that's making you more occupied, so that you don't have the time to maybe even, and this is true for Capricorn a lot of times, is that you're so ambitious and involved in making money and doing whatever, and trying to get ahead, that you just literally don't have the time for a private life. So you have to, like, use logic. If you are feeling like, yeah, now maybe I want to settle down. I've already made my mark to some degree. I'm in my 30s. I know not everybody will be, but I'm just giving an example. How are you going to get there if you are working 60 hours a week? In the past position, the Chariot card, yes, the Chariot card can be kind of that success. And it might have been hard fought, hard won success at that. But in order to call in love into your life, you have to make a space for it, right? So for the people who are in relationships that are unhappy, making a space means that you're not entangled with that person anymore, so you can move on with your life. But because life can be messy, it's not that easy. Sometimes you want to just be free from a relationship, but there are steps you have to go through to get there. And it can be a little bit, I was going to use the word annoying, but that sounds very mild. It can just be frustrating sometimes to feel like you want to move on, but there's other things going on that feel like you can't just snap your fingers and do that. The higher message is the Ten of Swords, which is very interesting because this can be a card of betrayal. And I think that one of the things that's so hurtful about betrayal is that a person can feel disillusioned. They can feel like their trust is broken, like they put their trust in someone, and that person did not give them what they thought they were going to get from that person. And another thing that can happen too is that it feels as though it makes it hard to approach a new relationship with innocent eyes. And but one thing that the Ten of Swords can sometimes be is that the worst is over. If you have been through kind of a rough patch with a relationship, and that could even involve getting divorced, for instance, that is about to end, and then you go into this new phase where things have settled down. And it doesn't seem like it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. What crosses you is the Knight of Wands. This is a card that is very, it's connected to Sagittarius, and I connect it personally myself to Aries energy. Very headstrong, very freedom loving, very chaotic. And I feel like when somebody has been pent up and maybe they've been in a long-term relationship and now they're free from it, it can feel like, especially with this card, if you feel like you're financially secure, you may be like, why should I even commit? It's a very Knight of Wands reversed or even upright. It can be the person who is very freedom loving. And sometimes you have to go through that stage where if you've been in a relationship, maybe even for a long time, where you sow your wild oats, and I don't mean like be promiscuous or anything like that, but you just enjoy that sense of not having to answer to anyone. And for, the Four of Pentacles, I think for Capricorn can also reveal a love of structure in your life on a material level. And so the Knight of Wands could threaten that, but it could be the very best thing that that person needs in order to kind of make that transition from one situation to the next. And for some people, they just go from one relationship to the next. They never have time to themselves where they can just process what they've been dealing with, but also just enjoy their being free, enjoying their not being in a relationship, answering only to themselves. What's coming in is the Hangman reversed. I'll just hold it upright. When the Hangman, the Hangman can be a card of surrender. And it's like, it's a very Piscean type of card. It's, it's connected to Neptune, the ruler of Pisces. But when it's reversed, it can be a useless sacrifice. That's the phrase in one of my tarot books. And what I take that to mean is that the person is sacrificing, but it's not producing anything positive. They're doing it for maybe to make somebody else happy. So if it's like in a marriage situation, they're staying there for the kids, but the kids aren't benefiting from it, that sort of thing. And that keeps that person very stagnant. If the person is single, they're like, well, I have to make certain sacrifices for my career, so I have to work 60 hours. Oh, yes, I want a family. I want to have a primary relationship, but I just don't have the time for it. Well, those are the kind of sacrifices that we think are so important that might prove like, why did I do this? Why did I make that choice instead of, prioritizing my private life? The outcome is the Eight of Wands. You can find that things start to really, you might find a lot of movement in December. Mars will still be in Sagittarius, and that moves into your sign, which can be very good too. But wands are connected specifically to fire energy. And this can make you feel like all of a sudden, if you hadn't had a date for 2 years, that you're fielding these different people trying to get a hold of you and things like that. So it could be quite a contrast. If you're in a relationship, you may have major developments in that. Okay, take care. Bye.